thank you for allowing us into your homes for this 38th edition of Season 3 of Esoteric Science Roundtable. And I want to thank Ron Anderson for coming on down.
Pleasure to be here.
To help me discuss our topic today, which is discernment. And we want to exercise a little bit of discernment because some of the folks viewing Access or listening to the Radio Free Austin the past couple of days, today in particular actually, might have been privy to some information that we want to kind of clarify and put it in the best possible light so that we can, again, use discernment, not get a little over anxious about some potentials that might be coming down the pike in the near future. So with that as a basis or a base, Ron, why don't you go ahead and
just tell the story.
Recount the story from the other day so we can kind of...
Okay. And I want to preface this. Some of you are viewers that have seen me on other Access shows and involved in things. I only say that because I want you to know I'm not just a kook that woke up and decided, wow, I bet we could scare a lot of people. I'm not into that kind of thing at all. I don't need the attention, and I've got other things to do. So anyway, but this is the information that I received, and we felt that it was from a source that was very good and very reliable. Here is the story. My wife knows a woman in Llano. I can't give her name right now only because I don't have permission to yet. This woman is a school teacher, a respected businesswoman in Llano, got a telephone call on Wednesday, I believe, from a friend of hers, someone that she had not heard from in at least 5 years. And it was an out-of-the-blue call. Well, her friend, it turns out, works for the Department of Homeland Security. I don't know what department he works in. It's a pretty massive organization, though. He asked her, or actually he told her not to go to Austin for Labor Day weekend for any reason. He said that he could not be specific as to why he was giving her this information, but that she should definitely not go to Austin. And that she should also tell all of her employees, which she went on to do, which is how we found out about it. So that is the information that I have. Nothing.
Also, yeah, she wasn't able to be specific, or he was not able to be specific about the nature of the alleged threat.
Nothing specific about the nature of the threat, about when it might happen. Really, the only thing that he was able to tell her was stay away from Austin this weekend, Labor Day weekend, which I guess stretches technically into Monday. And then things sort of took a funny turn after that because I called a few friends. I sat on this information most of the day, chewing on it, wondering what should I do, what should I do, what should we do, our family, act on it or not. And finally decided to give a few people a call. Corey was one of them. And Corey kind of took the ball from there and called Mike Hansen. And next thing we know, we got to do a short announcement like this on Alex's live taped show last night. And then, Corey, you said there's been some other developments.
Yeah, I was listening to Radio Free Austin, and I was listening at first to Alex's live broadcast. And Moses, who we know.
Good old Mo.
Good old Mo.
Hey, Mo.
Hey, Mo. He's probably watching as well. Maybe he'll call in a little while and give his side of things. But yeah, he was calling in to the guy that was guest hosting. This guy named Erskine was guest hosting Alex Jones's show, and he was able to call in, and he mentioned that he knew you and that you're not the type of person just to make these outrageous claims just for the heck of it. And so he felt like it was important enough to at least bring up the information and make people in the public aware that there may be potentially something coming up this weekend, some kind of an event or incident. Some people might say, we're being irresponsible by bringing this information out in the public because we don't really have many details. And that, to me, is a bit of a concern. But I would rather bring this information out, as vague as this may be, and say, hey, there's just this information, a threat, whatever, we want to keep our eyes peeled for in this particular city. Now, they have been doing some warnings for specific cities, the Homeland Security,
right,
where they'll up the little colored chart recently, and I think Philadelphia was one of the cities that got a specific warning within the last, several months. And I haven't heard anything along those lines about Austin per se.
Only after the ridiculous story of capturing that poor tourist man who had made the mistake of videotaping the Mansfield Dam in the Capitol and other things. Austin was brought up then. Austin as a realistic target is, the city is listed there mainly because, much to most of our chagrin, most people in the world think George W. Bush is from Austin. He used to live here in the governor's mansion, and his actual little hacienda is just a few miles north of us. So, what can we say? I wish I could tell you more. I can tell you that Binky and I, she knows the woman much better than I, of course, but we were convinced enough of her sincerity and her belief in this. She told every one of her employees about it, without any fear. Just this is what I have. Kind
of matter-of-factly, just laid it out to people that she cared about or what have you.
Because folks from Llano come to Austin all the time for the weekend and to do things. It has weighed in my decision to actually get out of town for the weekend. But if you were looking at the scales of balance, the heaviest one would be that I just need a break and I want some peace and quiet for a couple of days, and I can get it out at this ranch where there's nobody. But yeah, why not? Hey, it works out great. Some kind of warning, something might happen.
So you yourself won't be here in the city, and actually I really appreciate you taking the last-minute opportunity, because at first you said, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I'm going to be heading out of town already as it is. I don't think I can do the show. And then you called me back and you said, hey, I think I can. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's my pleasure. And I'm glad, especially since the story has apparently gotten some wider exposure, that at least I can come on. I really tried as hard as I could today to actually talk to her myself so that I could, at least bring that to you. But I can sit here in front of the camera and tell you what I know, tell you how we're reacting, and it's not out of fear, really. And the chances are that nothing's going to happen.
The vast majority, the odds are that likely nothing at all of any significance, terroristic or anything like that, is going to crop up. True.
But you might, whether you have a place where you could go or would enjoy going for the weekend and want to, or you have plans that are going to keep you here in town, there is a prudence to just having your ears up a little bit, and maybe even thinking about dusting off that little kit that you've had in your closet that's got your batteries and your radio and your flashlight and your little preparedness kit, some food, bottle of water or something. And a plan, just a plan, someplace you can go. If something happened or some weirdness or something, whatever, that you've got, you're not panicked, you're calm, you can grab these things and be gone. And if nothing happens, if this is another Elvis is going to be in Austin on his birthday, okay, I'm sorry. And like I said, I'm not trying to scare anybody, and we're not trying to create panic. You need to use the topics of the show that Corey chose tonight is so apropos, discernment, because that's how you need to take this information and discern it within your own self, find the place of peace where you're at, and like I said, maybe just be a little prepared. If you don't know how to do a preparedness kit, or if you haven't already made one, whether something happens this weekend or not, you kind of need to. There's one good thing that the Department of Homeland Security has done, and that is they have a website, www.ready.gov, R-E-A-D-Y, ready.gov. And pop on there and you'll see a picture of the odious Tom Ridge. I love him, of course, but he's got some problems. And it lists it all out there for you. You skip over the duct tape and the plastic, maybe, because...
But otherwise, it's got a pretty practical,
it's got a lot of
sense.
good, yeah, there is just common sense stuff, of stuff that you want that you might not have thought of. Wow, okay, and take the information and do it from there. But definitely don't act out of fear and panic.
Yeah, it should be more of a battle-ready, vigilant place that you're coming from, a place of preparation, preparedness, and not anxiety or fear. And one thing I do want to touch upon is the idea of getting some kind of a heads up or a call or warning from somebody. I mean, we don't really have a lot of information about this particular individual, so we don't know if he's quite high level and if he's privy to, you know, the cream of the crop information. And he's got something solid in his hands that he just, you know, is for certain, and you can just bet, you know, bet the farm on it. We don't know that at all, and that's again part of the idea of bringing this on, but with a big grain of salt and with a sense of discernment, because we don't know this person's position within Homeland Security, so we don't know how accurate. Did he just catch this from somebody else? Did he just catch a little buzz from, you know, that's going around the department?
And it could be that, you know, an easy scenario to envision could also be that people in Homeland Security are trying to identify what are targets. And when you have holidays, which it is kind of odd that this holiday, this Labor Day that we're going into right after the Republican National Convention, that we are not at an elevated terror alert status.
That's true, which has been kind of par for the course for previous.
Fuchsia or, no, I don't even know what color X. I don't pay attention to these. Talk about scaremongering. Okay, that's Ashcroft up there telling you we have hard evidence that's 4 years old. Anyway. But somebody, you know, they're trying to determine, Austin does have, you know, there are reasons that terrorists might want to attack Austin because Bush used to live here. There was just the Republican National Convention. It's Labor Day weekend. There's a big football game, first football game of the year right here in town. Thousands of people here for the citywide garage sale for the big festival down on South Congress, you know. So are there reasons that somebody who's in a position to be looking at these things might be concerned? Yeah. And if Austin was on the list of, say, 10 Texas cities, this guy might have called up his friend and said, hey, you know what? I can't tell you why, but you just might want to stay away from Austin. Mm-hmm. Or it could have been threat specific. We just don't know.
Right. And it's kind of, you know, if we go back towards the pre-911 kind of information, the buzz that was going around, we know there was a specific call made to Willie Brown, the San Francisco mayor, not to fly on that day, and also the author of the Satanic Verses, Salman Rushdie, he also was asked not to fly during that time. And so again, we don't know if we can put this warning at that level that, you know, it's coming from this kind of a grade or this, you know.
Condi Rice didn't call and say like she did Willie Brown. But warnings have preceded just about every major terrorist event from Oklahoma City. We know that the wrong people were warned. I say wrong, but the FBI and ATF, they were warned not to be in when the explosion happened, but the 100 and something children in the daycare center, they weren't warned. There were people warned on 9/11 inside the World Trade Center complex. We know this for a fact. Messages, emails from Israel to companies there at the World Trade Center with largely Israeli employees left the building, got out, got warning.
Right.
So, you know, nobody can pull off a large type of event without there being ripples.
And also there being some groundwork laid to pull it off.
Right.
You know, so if there is going to be some event that's going to be possibly potentially hitting Austin, then somebody knows about it.
Yeah.
And that's also what I want to bring up as well. If something does happen in this city over the weekend, then we have a direct threat or direct link to kind of trace back to kind of start our own investigation or what have you, to try to trace back, get back to, you know, the point of origin and see exactly what happened. So again, if there, you know, and I really, my heart of hearts tells me nothing is going to happen this weekend. I'm firmly convinced, and I'm not really going to take any extracurricular cautions that I don't normally take anyway. That's just how I'm going to proceed and perceive of what's taking place. But you know, we don't really know the levels, so everyone's going to have to decide, you know, at what level of how they want to react to it ultimately. So.
And along that lines, I think also it's important, and most of the viewers of this show, I'm sure, are already aware of this, but for those that aren't, we're talking about the globalist here. We're not talking about Osama or Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda as they're referred to nowadays. You know, we're talking about globalists because they're the only ones who can pull these kinds of things off within the boundaries of the United States. And they're the primary
ones who stand to gain in every instance.
And, you know, it's funny to look at the terrorism going on. Not funny. It's
Amusing.
ironic to look at the terrorism going on in Iraq right now, for instance, or even this horrible incident in Russia that has
a definite terrorist event.
terrorist link. But what has Al Qaeda been capable of doing pretty much since September 11th, and especially in Iraq? Kidnapping people. Kidnapping people. These are supposed to be the people that masterminded and planned for years the simultaneous hijacking of 4 commercial aircraft in the United States, got NORAD to stand down, defied the laws of physics to bring the World Trade Centers 1, 2, and 7 down, and make a plane completely disappear with no debris at all and shoot through 3 solid things of the Pentagon. Okay,
right.
That's globalists. They did that. That's who we're talking about. Guys in a cave, even with a laptop and a cell phone, can't pull that kind of thing off, folks.
True, agreed. And that's why, again, I mean, certain people, are aware that that's the case. Certain people are still convinced that, Osama, again, maybe from a cave or something, pulled this stuff off. I don't know, whatever your level of discernment or understanding of these issues is, it's still a matter of considering, again, intent. And anytime there's any kind of a terrorist so-called event that happens, like you were saying, nothing really major has happened since then. You would think that there would have been ample opportunity to have another kind of major big-scale event here in the States or what have you.
Typical Al-Qaeda truck bombings and embassy bombings. And I mean, all those are horrible because people are dying in them, and there's a lot of, but, that's about all those guys are capable of doing, I'm afraid. Without our help.
Right, absolutely. And so again, if there is anything sketchy that does happen to take place over the weekend, we're going to have, a bit of a heads up and able to trace back and get an idea as to, the intent and the origin of that mission or whatever, that action. And so that's why we want to also try to put that in that, excuse me, in that context, because hopefully that will ease some people's minds a bit that, just the fact that people are aware and prepared that there may be something going on will maybe dissuade or discourage potential people that were trying to, pull something like this off.
Stranger things have happened.
All right, and so I want to also mention the networking capability and capacity that we have through these live shows, and also in conjunction with Radio Free Austin and the Republic of Texas broadcast, Genesis Communications. There's an amalgamation, and there's an exchange, and there's cooperation among the various hosts of these different shows and the viewers, that we have access to each other's phone numbers, and we can call each other when something pressing comes up, and we can say, hey, did you hear about this? And this is something you might want to be concerned about. So from Ron calling me, to me getting a call into Mike Hansen, to Mike saying, hey, call him back, let's get him on the air, getting Ron on the air to discuss what he was aware of up to that point. And then me today at work having an opportunity to listen to the Republic of Texas broadcast and hearing Alex's live show. And again, Moses calling in to say, he had heard Ron speak. And that he knew Ron was a trustworthy, not given to flights of fancy type person, and so he felt the information was.
I'm squeaky clean.
Yeah, it felt like it was something to pay heed to. And then after that, I heard another woman calling in to Alex's show, and she was from another state. She was a bit more concerned that perhaps there was something significant to this warning, and that was where she was coming from. And then on the Jack Blood show, or the Deadline Live show after that, another guy called in, and he apparently lives down the street from John Statmiller, and he was, again, not so concerned, but he did bring up the idea, or the fact that there's a football game coming up this weekend at the UT Memorial Stadium, and that would be one big event, that you could easily point to. Now, again, are we saying there's going to be some incident at the football game? Don't go to the game? No, by no means. We're not saying anything along those lines. You have to, again, use your own God-given sense of discernment and just trust your own inner nature about these things, because that is, in every instance, your intuition is going to be right. So if you can just, wade through and cut through all the rhetoric and just trust yourself, your own inner voice, that's going to be the best advice I can offer up as to what I think people how they should treat this information and how they should act or react accordingly. Each person is going to have to gauge this and determine what they want to do, once they've heard this potential maybe taking place. So I wanted to definitely bring up the networking capacity, because we can, And that's getting back to this idea of access television. We have this live venue here.
Wonderful thing.
Wonderful venue to be able to, again, network in this manner. And we need to keep this access television intact, vital, and as is, so that we can maintain this network, this this ability to get the word out in a pretty fast fashion. And I was really quite surprised, in all honesty, when I was listening to the radio to hear the feedback and the repercussions. And basically, it's become, in short fashion, a nationally known, nationally recognized potential, event. And so that, again, I think would kind of perhaps put a damper on the potential plans if their planners are starting to realize, hey, people are aware that something might be happening, and they're going to be a little bit more, they're going to have, again, their eyes and ears peeled a bit more, so maybe we should kind of ease back a bit, reschedule, readjust, reorient, whatever the case may be. Or maybe there wasn't any plan to begin with, and we're just, talking out of our sides of our mouths for no good reason. But anyway, I still am eternally grateful, nonetheless, for the fact that we have our emergency broadcast system in effect.
A real one.
Right. Whether we need to use it, however, whether this turns out to be a real event or not, however, that pans out, we still have access and the ability to get information out and get it out to a vast number of people in a relatively short order. And that was demonstrated to me. I mean, even the person that I work pretty intimately with at my workplace, she was pretty familiar about a lot of these things that we discussed down here, and she was kind of just shocked and just kind of, she was just kind of getting caught up in the whole, I guess, the whole rush of this potential incident, and the way that it was just feeding through all these different shows and how the word had just gotten out so quickly, and, I could see how she was, that was... it was a little exciting, I guess, in a way. I'd hate for these things to get to take on that context and that tone, but,
Well, it's encouraging to know that if there's information that needs to get out to people who can act on it, which are the kind of people who watch Access TV and the kind of people who listen to Republic Radio.
Yep, true.
It's there. It works, and it moves up the chain rather quickly, and that is it's a blessing that we have these free speech outlets where we can do it. It's a blessing that we have hosts like Corey and producers like Mike Hansen who are willing to say, hey, let's run with this, and just put it out there, taking a little risk themselves, so we're very, very fortunate to have that, and it's really, and of course, hoping that nothing will happen this weekend. It's really great to see, though, that information can get out to people, and then we just make our own decisions.
And considering this most recent Republican National Convention, depending on who you check with, I mean, the low numbers I heard were there were like 300,000 people there. Yeah. And then on up from that, you heard maybe 400,000 or better. So at the minimum, 300,000, and I tend to think there were more, closer to 400,000 or better, my personal opinion on the matter, gathering for a peaceful protest. I mean, there really wasn't anything shady that went down. There was arrests, obviously, and there were things of that nature. But as far as a mass violence or really any kind of outbreak of anything chaotic and crazy, it didn't really happen. About the most controversial thing that took place was a burning of a papier-mâché dragon, and some police person allegedly got burned as a result of trying to put the fire out. And so if that's that's a worst case example of violence or whatever, chaos in that huge city with that many people amassing, then that to me gives me a lot of faith and confidence in our humanity. And I actually had a chance to visit New York City recently in May, and I was completely enthralled with the city, the people, the way that they interact, the way that they exchange, and I have, again, a lot of confidence and faith in that city and that group of people, and I was really pleased, but I was also very confident anyway that this is how it was going to pan out. There wouldn't be any extra crazy violence, and that people would behave themselves, by and large, and that there would be more exchange and cooperation than, again, chaos and just madness. So, I think we're fortunate also, and that ties into the whole networking thing too, because again, listening to the Radio Free Austin here over the past week, you got to hear calls from our respective men in the field.
Yeah.
You had Jack Blood, you had Alex, John Stott Miller, and probably, I'm not sure who else. Well, Kevin Booth, he's from Austin as well. He was helping Alex out.
And, you know, these guys are out there, they're getting arrested, being threatened with arrest
At the very least,
at
being
every
threatened.
turn.
Right.
They've got all these credentials, apparently, that you had to be wearing, but still they're being checked and refused and told to erase film that they've made. And
True
you know,
indeed, yes. So they had their share of being accosted by the cops, even though they had their Fox badges on, and you think, you know, oh well, you know, these are part of the convention. These are our guys. We got to, you know, go out of our way and make sure they're okay. But now they got their share of heat from the authorities and from the protesters as well. Because if you're walking around with a Fox badge on and you're in the midst of hundreds of thousands of, you know, in most cases, a lot of cases, democratic-minded individuals, then yeah, there might be a little bit of
you might get bashed a little.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, and my understanding is definitely John Stott Miller and Jack Blood have made it back into the area, and they're none the worse for wear. They're probably a little tired, but, you know, and I really commend all those guys for going up there and giving the live coverage, because we didn't get that in the mainstream media. I mean, we got next to nil in the mainstream media, and so I was very thankful to have people that of integrity that, you know, they proved to me anyway, and I've proved to a lot of people in this listening area that they are solid citizens, and that what they're bringing up is as close to the truth as they can present it. And so we can rest assured and be confident that what they're bringing out in their reports is about as close to an eyewitness account as you could possibly get without being there yourself. And so again, much props and I commend those guys, you know, considerably for the risks that they took and all the extra efforts that they made to bring this information back. So again, I really want to thank them, and again, just bring up the idea that we have a good network here, and we have a lot of solid citizens involved that can get the word out, and again, in a rapid fashion. And so this story, or this potential warning, went from being just a local thing yesterday to literally being global as of, you know, this afternoon. And so I'm very pleased by that. Again, nothing may come out of it, and we may get some feedback from folks saying, you know, hey, that was kind of irresponsible for you to put this stuff on, you know, you don't have any real substantial information to give, you're just giving vague warnings and things of that nature. But, you know, when you get a call, when somebody that you know gets a call from Homeland Security, it's probably best just to err on the side of caution and just kind of consider that there may be something coming on down the pike, just in case. You know, it's just, again, better to be vigilant, battle ready, and not run around like Chicken Little. We're not trying to be the Chicken Littles and say the sky is falling. We're saying, hey, just keep an eye up there. Keep one eye up just in case.
As if we always, you know, haven't or don't. It's just, you know, hey, here it is. And, you know, along that line about staying in fear or not, there's something about the people, the globalists, you know, the elite, the Illuminati, whatever name you've got,
whatever your favorite pet name is,
whatever your tag. We're before 10 o'clock, so anyway, they operate on fear. Okay. They like to project fear and terror through force and through trauma, through shock and awe. But what you have to realize is that fear breeds fear, and love breeds love. Fear will never breed love, and love will never breed fear. Why do I say that? Well, if fear breeds fear, then those who are perpetrating fear and terror on us must themselves be in a very deep state of fear, of anxiety, of frightenedness, which is understandable because they have broken out of harmony with the rest of creation. They've totally gone over to the darker, the evil, you know, what they have chosen.
Negative polarity.
Negative polarity, the materialistic, and we as sentient beings suffer greatly when we break away from that. We do. It fractures us. When we say that the globalists are sick individuals, you know, it's not just that common kind of, oh, that's sick. No, they are. They're really, they're sick. They can be fixed, too. They can be brought back in. But their greatest fear, believe it or not, is of us. not us on TV. Us, people who know, people who have broken free of the mental slavery, who have woken up to what's going on around them. You understand the nature of the matrix, and you get yourself grounded, grounded in love, and suddenly there is no more fear. There can be concern, about certain things, but you're not afraid, and they don't understand that because it's a very foreign feeling for them. They are actually terrified of us, and especially right now because there are so many of us waking up. And whether anything happens this weekend or at some other time in the future, as they keep telling us, we're going to get attacked, we're going to get attacked. In a way, it might be helpful if you think about it. If you remember that there is a law in this little third dimensional world that we're existing in right now called it's the law of equal and opposite force. For every force, there's an equal and opposite, reaction. Well, for every 9/11 hyped up, fearful terror event that just traumatizes a nation and a world, that has an equal and opposite reaction. But some people refer to it as karma, others as synchronicities, whatever. But it's not an immediate reaction. It's delayed, but it comes. And that reaction is that instead of breeding fear and getting people who are of the mindset to give up their liberty, what actually happens is you wake people up and they find out about the lies and they find out about the slave system and they break free. They get grounded in love and they're no longer under control in mass numbers, which is the result of September 11th. So, I'm not saying if they set off another bomb and kill a bunch of people here in the U.S. or wherever, that is tragic, and I'm very disturbed by the loss of life that they're willing to give. However, for every act of fear and evil they would try to put on us, there is an equal and opposite reaction from the positive polarity, from the place of love, and bringing creation back into harmony. Because they know as well as we do that this cosmic game is coming to a head right now, and whether they like it or not, there is going to be a new world order. They want to convince us that it's going to be this dark, ugly thing, but ladies and gentlemen, there are forces at work much greater than the Bushes and the Windsor family here. They're cosmic forces of the Creator's design, and this stuff's just going to happen. But in the process, there's a lot of bad stuff that's going to happen too. The old system has to fall for the new one to come out. And the process of falling is a little bit hard, a little bit painful. But keep that in mind. Stay in love. Don't buy into fear, because then you're in their element.
That's great. Man, wonderful words. I agree. I cannot agree more. That is the main thing that these globalists, these elitists, these people that try to assert and they try to implement their power over us. I mean, money and things of that nature do have somewhat of an appeal to them, and gaining things has an appeal to them to a certain degree, but ultimately it's in the power of manipulating people. And there's a group of people that do actually take some kind of a pleasure or satisfaction in creating this fear matrix, this propaganda matrix, and this system of uncertainty that they keep, ratcheting down on us more and more, and so it just puts us in a tailspin a lot of times when we don't know which way is up. And this is how they hope to gain, by keeping the people that are normally level-headed in some kind of confusion, uncertainty, and anxiety. And when we do get back to that centered place where we can come from a place of love, and we're not player haters towards these elitists or anything like that either. We just look at them as in a position of not full understanding. When you've removed yourself that far from, again, as you say, the creative impulse and that the Creator's intent, you're in a tailspin. You're in a really whacked out place, and so you don't have a real good compass or navigational tool to know what's right and what's wrong. You're just kind of going on some kind of crazy inertia or momentum, and you're just, wreaking havoc along those lines. And so this is a condition that a lot of these individuals find themselves in. And, some of them have placed themselves in these positions. And other people, I think, just get caught up in the whole system. And a lot of them, I think, or some of them at least, I think, honestly feel like they're doing the right and proper thing by carrying out these actions, or going to Iraq and they're, under the guise of freedom, and they're going to go, kill a bunch of people, under that heading. I really think these people are confused and misguided to the point where I don't think they're past the point of no return, as you were saying earlier. I think we can reel a lot of these people back with calm, battle readiness, and coming from a place of love. That is the key thing. This, I think, frustrates them more so than anything. If we can mass...
People who act out of fear, they're fearful themselves, but, the biggest bully on the block, and I know this from when I was a kid, I learned this lesson, the biggest bully on the block, if somebody ever stands up to them, that's it, game's over, and they're just milquetoast after that. Because when you react in fear to my aggression or whatever, you are giving up energy massively. You are just handing over your will. You are to allow me to further, bring you into terror and fear. Now, if you come from a place of love, fear has very little effect on you. You may be concerned about things, but you're not afraid of them. So, I mean, because really, what's the worst they can do to me? They can end my flesh suit existence. I live forever. Gosh, So I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of dying. I don't want to die because there's lots of good things happen in this world, and I want to see them all come through. But it's the mindset of some of even the great civil rights leaders of Malcolm X or Gandhi. All said, look, I have to do what's right, and I will love, but I will not buy into your game of fear and slavery. I am a sovereign person. And if I die, I still die free and sovereign, and you've taken nothing from me.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't really put that in better terms. I agree with you. That's it's keeping that fear, keep fear here, don't internalize it, and that's going to be the step one. We do have some calls, so let's go ahead and grab a couple calls, see what's going on. Hello, caller, you're on the air. Line one, hello. Caller? No? Okay, hang on a second. Let me see if I can just put him on hold for the time being and see if we can get that straightened out. Okay, all right, try another line. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hey, it's Mo from Mo's Tavern.
What's up, Mo?
Hoping to hear from you, man. Thanks. First of all, hey, thanks for calling.
Ron.
Thanks for calling. I appreciate it. And then your words when you called the InfoWars today, you really put it in the best possible light as far as, hey, I'm not trying to, cause any insanity here. I just want people to kind of have a little heads up. And I really appreciate your calm demeanor when you called in, man. Because you were talking to thousands of people, whether, I'm sure you realize that, as you're talking to thousands of people this evening. And these are the people that can handle these potentials. And so thank you for kind of getting this thing instigated in a way.
Well, Ron inspired that calmness. He said when he called in, not trying to scare everybody, but just letting you know I heard this, and that's good. It was funny when I got off the horn, the fellow says, all right, chill out. It was kind of funny because, it can be scary, but fearless love is really a challenge to just activate and really, really just try to do. But to fearlessly love even the most hateful thing can, honest to God, change its energy. Yeah. And, you see someone walking down the street and just think, oh, gosh, that looks kind of like a scary person. You just switch it around a little bit and just go, I'm expecting the best out of this person. They're probably scared and lonely, and it's all going to be okay. And just try to cast love at them in such a way that, they're not inspired to just maybe come up and just, mob you with a hug and be, because folks are attracted to
yes,
this force of love or just, light coming out. So, but just something weird on the whole New World Order plans. I do think in some of the so-called secret society text, they really feel called this would probably be a good way to describe it. Do this thing most evil so that you may truly know good. And in alchemical terms, they would view humanity as still a base metal, and by imposing the most hideous restriction on the entire of humanity, they'll force this realization of a golden age and rebellion against that. But I say there's more than one way to skin a cat, or just leave that old cat alone.
Yeah,
what are you
right.
doing skinning cats anyway?
And let the cat find its way to enlightenment.
Yeah. You're supposed to kind of pet cats and be delighted by them. Anyway, love you all. Thanks for doing the show.
Good points.
And,
Thanks, man.
next caller. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Again, man, you helped, spread the ripples, as we were saying earlier, and again, keep that calm, sense and what have you. So I really give you a lot of props for that, and helping again, kind of making this access, what we have available here, and also through the radio, making it viable, using it to the best of our interest. We got a very, very valuable tool in our hands, so let's use it with caution, wisdom, and discernment. Okay, before we do grab some calls, if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead and do just what Mo was suggesting and use this prayer that we have behind us. And just, I would like to ask anybody that's interested, that's viewing this evening, if they could just read the words and just kind of, in your own mind, just kind of work along with us as we're going to recite this invocation. And my intent with this is to dispel any kind of negativity, just to kind of bring peace and bring stability and bring a calmness to this city and everywhere for that matter too. But in particular, we got the warning about Austin, so I want to consider Austin from that angle. And again, use this prayer, which I feel is the most powerful prayer that I'm aware of, to get some energy generated to dispel any potential negativity, as Mo was describing. And I think we have a very potent tool here with these group of words. If we can all say them collectively with massed intent, we can truly change or stave off any potential funkiness. And so if anybody's interested in joining along, I'm going to go ahead and recite the Great Invocation. And again, if we can just get our intent centered on protection for the city and just cooperation and exchange, more so than uncertainty and anxiety. So if we can come together and agree upon these words: from the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center, which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. And I want to thank everybody that took the time to speak along with us and share your intent. And I think as a woman that did happen to call into Alex's show, mentioned earlier, prayer and a spiritual outlook is our best defense. And we certainly are coming from that angle, and we think that is worth our time and trouble to, again, collect our intent to either refocus, reorient, shift, whatever it needs to be done to diminish this potential threat or whatever may happen. So we want to keep that down to a minimum, and if nothing is going to happen, then that's all the better. And if people want to, chat with me in a week or so, or Ron for that matter, and say, hey, you guys, why did you guys do that? Nothing happened, and you guys just stirred up a lot of trouble for nothing. So be it, and if that happens, and if nothing happens, which is my belief that nothing really major or significant is going to take place, then, I don't mind. I really don't. I'd rather be looked at as somebody that is a little silly or whatever than not go through the time and trouble to bring this up.
This is a test of the Emergency Freedom Broadcast System. It's only a test.
That's right, but you know, we have to again be battle ready, be vigilant, and be prepared just in case. And we've got a good crew assembled. We've got a darn good crew assembled in this area, and I wouldn't want to be really affiliated with anybody else for that matter. I mean, all of you guys are so good, you know, right, exactly. And the sharing and exchange that takes place is very humbling in this area. So I wouldn't really want to be anywhere else. If something funny or funky is going to go down in Austin this weekend, that's where I want to be, because these are the people that I care about, and this is where I'm going to make a stand if need be. Okay, hello caller, you on the air? Hello caller? All right. Hello caller, you on the air?
Hello?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I got a lot of respect for y'all being out there, putting y'all's faces on the TV and, you know, getting the word out. This is the first time I've really ever called any one of the shows. But I've got a question. It's just kind of something that I've gotten into as of late is, what do you guys think about the Book of Enoch and some of the information that's been put out there from that? And also, also about maybe some, what do you guys think about the role of psychedelics in the whole plan or the whole opening and awakening?
Good questions. I've done some different, I'm going to let you go on that, but I've done a few different things along those lines. To touch on the Book of Enoch, I would say, first of all, there are a lot of books that are called apocryphal, and they're not part of the accepted canon that became the Bible, you know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and those books. Book of Enoch, there's a Book of Thomas, there are the Essene Gospels, there are books by the Nazarenes.
Gospel of Peter, Revelation of Peter, it's just tons.
There are a lot of writings there are old writings that were written around the same time as the gospel narratives, but they didn't they weren't added in the book because they tend to be a little bit more out there and more extreme in their approach. And so there was a certain slant that the church wanted to take, or the people that were controlling the church and how it was playing out at that time, they wanted to take a certain view of it. And so these books didn't fit in with their idea of how they wanted to proceed. And so they kind of had to make them, you know, not available and push them off to the side. You know, we don't want to talk about that stuff. But there is so much information that's available along those lines. And there's people that talk about the so-called Gnostic heresy, and that there's some people that feel if it's not in this book, the Bible, that it must be heretical, it must be satanic or something like that. And I just can't come from that angle. I think there's a lot of great writing, great literature that's very spiritual, that's equally as spiritual as the Bible writings, that just didn't get included in that one book, but nonetheless has the same weight and validity. As far as the psychedelics, the psychedelic music movement started in Austin in the mid-'60s with the 13th floor elevators, and they sought to bring out these metaphysical ideas, these ideas of spiritualism, not spiritualism, but spiritual ideas and expansion of consciousness. Yes, through the use of psychedelics and through the use of drugs, but they had a very metaphysical or philosophical message behind that, and they really got sidetracked by some incidents that took place. First of all, the incarceration of their lead singer in a mental institution for several years. That put a big damper on things. So they took a turn, and they didn't really have the weight that they might have otherwise had as far as bringing that message out through the psychedelic music that would have really changed our society a lot in a much faster fashion that took place the way that it did. But definitely they have their place as far as a tool to use or a means to use to open up your mind. But there are a lot of other things you can do as well. Meditation, I would suggest first and foremost. Prayer, contemplation, things along those lines are very effective, the most effective as far as I'm concerned. Ron, any thoughts along those lines?
Regarding the first question, I would just encourage the caller and any viewers out there, especially if you're Christian, to do a couple of things, and that is, one, do a little bit of research into where your Bible came from. Why are there 27 books in the New Testament? Because, and you don't have to go to fringe and weird authors to find it. It's very mainstream. I did my time in biblical study school and got my degree, and I can tell you there's lively debate among biblical scholars today about books that got left out and books that were included. And there is a lot of debate about a lot of the epistles, especially, that don't seem to be written by Paul. We don't know who they were written by. And so what I'm not trying to bash the Bible or say it's not true, okay? What I am saying is, especially if you've been reading it for a number of years, it might be time to set it aside for a moment and go out and explore some other information. Challenge your own belief system. You don't need to break down your faith, but with growth, growth only comes through challenge. And if you only read what you know you will agree with, then you will always believe what you would believe and nothing else. Right. So check out a book of Enoch or the Gospel of Peter. Check out the Gospel of Thomas and read a story about Jesus sending bears out of the wood to eat children. I mean, there's some weird stuff in there. Pick up a David Icke book or any of that stuff and challenge yourself a little bit. You'll find that your faith, instead of being destroyed and the only show you'll watch on Access is The Atheist Experience, what you'll find is that you actually gain a greater understanding of God, a greater understanding of the nature of the Creator and His creation and your role in that, your purpose, so to speak. It's very liberating. Never be afraid to follow truth where truth wants to lead you. The minute you put on the brakes on that, you're saying, no, I'm only comfortable at this plateau, and here I will stay. And some people pitch tents, and some people build mansions on those plateaus. But, you got to pack it all up and keep on going, man.
It's true, yeah. It's good to be having that expanding kind of attitude. You want to take in, you want to experience, you want to take in more things, and that ties in with a psychedelic or a spiritual journey as far as experiencing, expanding, and looking into something that you may not have seen before. And not being afraid to go ahead and look into it. Be
comfortable enough in your belief, but flexible enough to know that I don't know everything. I don't have perfect understanding, so I can always improve that somehow. And I'll throw in the caveat. I remember the old Pentecostal preacher used to say, "Those college students get there and you're so open-minded, your brains have fallen out." So don't be so open-minded that your brains fall out, but and that every day you believe a different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true too.
Be steady, but don't be afraid.
All right. Exercise a little discernment in your experimenting. Just, proceed with a little caution, but be open-minded again. Yeah, great point. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yeah, Ron Corey. Peace and love to you guys. How you doing? This is Peaceful Pete calling.
Cool. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I talked to you guys a few weeks ago, and I'd like to thank Ron for talking about that spiritual journey, something that I had undertaken about 5 years ago, and ended up changing my master's from engineering into working the spiritual side of life. Something I wanted to say about psychedelics, fun to dabble in if you really don't do it. Transcendental meditation, I've gotten so much power and peace from that. Something that Ron had been talking about along the lines of your topic on discernment, and that was the working of the energies. I found much more discernment in the field of when I started balancing the negative and the positive, being the masculine and the feminine, called the yin and the yang in life. And that spiritual awareness has brought me to some very interesting plateaus that I'm still very confused about. One of those things where, talking about psychedelics, if I was to explain some experience I've had in life, they would end up saying, well, Pete, I think you need to be on drugs.
We're going to lock you up.
But it's all spiritual awakenings along the light of love, and that's a wonderful thing. Something I found really interesting is when you guys are talking about spreading the light, if I can mention his name, Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book that if I was to read about 5 years ago, I would have thought it was about poppycock. But basically he says that we're all sorcerers, and we have the capability of extending white or black light, and that man is so correct. So when one of the two of you were talking about extending love to those people that we may fear on the street, just try it, be good for once and see what kind of miracles happen in life. And I just wanted to make that comment. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate the time you're spending on the show.
Hey, thank you very much for taking the time to call and viewing, and we really appreciate that as well. It's a two-way street, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. As far as I always try to exercise that kind of activity too. When you're walking around or you're interacting with other people, don't just look at the person and say oh or whatever. Just try to use that discernment and try to approach everything with an open mind, and you might surprise yourself, really.
Absolutely. And yes, we all are sorcerers and sorceresses. We we have the power of all creation is bundled up in your body, and the power to completely have the future that we collectively and individually want. It's all locked up in here. You've just got to learn to release it through the right energy. And that balance, I love what he said about balance. That's what it's not about way over here in good and way over here in evil. It's about harmony.
Right,
balance.
absolutely. And then you can see both sides with discernment and clarity, absolutely. But we can make a lot of, when we do come together and we have the open, loving heart and we can speak to other people that are coming from that same place, you start talking, you realize we want the same thing, almost identically, So when you do add that open heart to another open, allowing heart, times 10, times 20, times, ad infinitive, you get a lot of power. You get a lot of power amassed, and then when you direct that power and that love energy with your intent, you can do much, and mountains truly can be moved, and that is our intent here with trying to bring these ideas to the public, that yes, we collectively can change, rearrange, adjust, whatever we need to make things work out for the highest and best good for all concerned. And so, that's what we're trying to come from that place. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yes, Ronald McDonald.
Okay. Not sure what to make out of that.
I think he has a job somewhere else.
Hello, caller, you on the air?
Yeah, you mentioned the atheist experience, and I think by now we've all pretty much had enough of Martin Fagner and Ashley Quirian, and Mo's a traitor.
Mo the traitor?
Mo's a good guy, man.
Come on,
I know
FBU,
Mo.
brother. We ain't trying to bash somebody today. We're trying to come together in a
Bashing, yeah.
we're trying to come together in a sense of allowing. Hey, thanks for viewing, though, nonetheless. And as far as the whole topic of discernment, I would just ask that we exercise a little discernment. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
I'm a prostitute.
Oh, okay. Wow, we're getting some
Young
really
viewers there.
really diverse crowd here today. Okay. Hello, caller, you on the air?
Crazy Mo loves FBU and says total surveillance will eventually hold us all accountable until we defetishize the whole voyeurism and can go back to minding our own business. We can see the president taking a poop, and you can see me doing the same. That'll be just fine.
Thanks, Mo. Appreciate it.
What a mental image to go out. Rescue us here, Corey.
Okay, we really... Okay, Austin is a wonderful city. So many people live in this city for that very reason, that it is all that and a baseball bat, and we stay here for a reason. And there's a wonderful sense of community here, and you really can walk down the street and say hello to people, and you can go to talk to your neighbor, and their neighbor will have an exchange with you. I can almost guarantee that will happen. So it's just a matter of being open to these things, and not coming from fear, coming from a place of certain calm, certainty, being battle ready, being vigilant, all those things. Ron, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come down
Great to
and
be here.
offer up your insight into this little incident, this little bump in the road. But we are going to weather the storm, and my hope is that nothing funky is going to happen, and we're going to be back here next Friday, 8 p.m., Channel 10.
No, I'm going to freak out!
we can do this again, and my confidence is that we will for sure be here again next week. Myself, at least, maybe not Ron as a co-host, but anyway, thanks, Austin. Thanks to my producer Chris for commanding the helm of the Starship Esoterica. Hang in there, Austin. We're going to get through this. Take care. Have a nice evening. We'll see you.